Is there a place for project managers and complexity? Yes, there is. Scrum has a weakness, in my opinion, in that it injects artificial accountabilities to get some change agency. A scrum master is put in there. Very good scrum masters can be very good change agents, and agile coaches can be very good change agents. Often we see people filling scrum master accountabilities that don't actually understand what a scrum master really does. Organizations often have specifications looking for the wrong kind of people. Similarly with product owners, product ownership done really well is wonderful. You could argue the best type of product owner, kind of an entrepreneurial product owner, if you like. Some people would say CEO of the product. Some people would disagree with that, but really empowered product owners are essentially agile leaders who can inspire teams and cultivate an environment where agility can grow. But I would say 95% of product owners are really people who are acting as go-betweens. And in Scrum, we don't really want the product owner to be clarifying requirements. We want the product owner to be clarifying problems that need to be solved, and then introduce the developers, the people who do the work, with the customers and end users, and they clarify what needs to be done together. And so these artificial accountabilities done well makes a fantastic difference. There are some wonderful case studies around the world. Done really badly, it causes problems. And so we already know that we have project managers. We know we already have line managers. And so in a sense, you could almost say to yourself, well, why are we creating these artificial accountabilities to cultivate an environment where teams can be more effective, where we can maximize value, when agile leaders can do that? And in Kanplexity, for example, there's a guide, which is essentially an agile leader, a kind of a backstage leader. And as long as you're demonstrating all of the behaviors that in Kanplexity we expect of an agile leader, I don't see why a project manager could do that. I've seen project managers who are much better than a lot of scrum masters out there. So we give project managers a hard time in the scrum world, saying, you know, you don't really fit, there's no space for you. Okay, you could be a scrum master if you exhibit those behaviors. You could be a product owner as long as you don't exhibit project manager 2.0 behaviors. You could be a developer in terms of doing work in the team. Maybe there's compliance work, dealing with stakeholders, that's delegated from the product owner, and so on. We do find ways to give an answer, but it's never felt like a satisfactory answer from Scrum in terms of where do project managers fit in. And as far as I'm concerned, a project manager could be a very good guide as long as they are exhibiting the kind of behaviors that we're looking for. Kanplexity is quite clear on what behaviors are expected from a guide. How they deal with complexity, what you would do in terms of flow efficiency. It's all about flow, complexity, and agile leadership. And so essentially a project manager in a complexity context would need to be a very enlightened one, and would need to be willing to reinvent themselves. There's some warnings in the appendix of the complexity guide in terms of what you need to look out for when you are a project manager, when you're doing project management with Kanplexity. For example, if you set up a dedicated team for a particular project, lots of projects tend to be short to medium term, not so much long term, unless you're going to Mars or something like that. And so a lot of project managers, they set up dedicated teams for those projects, and they have to go through the Tuckman phases: forming, storming, normally performing. They have to go through a big change curve. Kanplexity is a different way of working. It could be any new way of working. They're going to go through a drop in performance, actually, initially. And so if you have a project manager who is working with fixed states, which is not the way we'd want to operate in Kanplexity, it's okay to have projects. People just seem to have conflated projects with fixed states. You can have projects that aren't fixed states. You can do forecasting based on probabilities, for example. You can communicate uncertainty, all those kind of things. But imagine you got a fixed state like 6 months down the road, and you're spending 2 months just trying to adjust to the Tuckman phases and the change curve. That's a very uncomfortable experience for a project manager, and you might kind of exhibit some maybe less agile behaviors when you're feeling the pressure for delivery because you've only got 4 months left, 4 months left on the clock, and that's maybe where you might struggle with the behaviors. But as long as you comply with the guidance of the guide, this is what we expect from a guide in complexity. I don't see why a project manager couldn't be a good guide in complexity.